Hey everybody, Jason here. Getting ready to take off for work. Make sure there's no kids behind me. So yesterday I was talking about a number of things, and I had at the end of my video, I had briefly mentioned the Star Wars Saga Edition role-playing game by Wizards of the Coast. And it kind of led me into, after I had turned that video off, it led me into another train of thought about not just that game in particular. I had never played it, and I would play it. I would gladly play it. I would give probably any game a shot. But after I had turned that video off, my train of thought branched off into another thing, which was that I find a lot of times that when it comes to IPs and established like movie worlds and book worlds and things like that, since D20 is the most popular system out there, and for good reason, it's a good system, I understand it, I find that a lot of stuff gets shoehorned, or I should say a lot of properties get the D20 class and level system shoehorned into their property for a role-playing game. And that's really unfortunate, because there are a lot of really good properties out there that, while class and level systems work well for Dungeons and Dragons type games, like fantasy style games and things like that, it was created for that, so it fits that. I think is part of it. I don't mind a level system, but I'm not real big on classes. They're a little restrictive. Sometimes you can get classes that can branch out and get abilities in other classes to let you kind of do what you want to do. Then you can multi-class and things, which is kind of silly, but I get it. But I was thinking that it's really unfortunate, though, a lot of systems get, and I don't want to make a negative video here. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I just think it's unfortunate that a lot of games get the D20 system shoehorned into it. And I think the reason that is because, one, it's the most popular thing, and so when people see on the cover, you know, the D20 logo or whatever, or compatible with the world's most popular role-playing game or whatever, that, yes, that the familiarity with the system will help drive that sale, but also because they're like, hey, I know how to play D&D. I know all the mechanics of, you know, armor class and hit points and, you know, 3 to 18 stats and all that good stuff. So I could probably pick up this game and start playing right away, or pretty fast anyway, which is great, and I understand that. But then when you look into the mechanics of the game, it's just kind of silly when you look at a property that doesn't really have a class-based system, doesn't really apply to the characters that are in the movie. And I kind of understand the Star Wars thing, because each character is very niche in what it is. Like, there's the smuggler with the heart of gold, there's the princess, who's the charismatic leader, there's the farm boy turned Jedi, so you can just make it, because when he goes out on his adventure, he's basically a level 1 Jedi. He has no real class before that. I'm talking about Luke Skywalker. So I kind of understand where you could do a class system, although I think the D6 system was a lot smarter, where you had a concept or an archetype and built upon it from there, where anybody had access to anything they wanted to learn, rather than it being a class type thing. So that's smart. But I think Final Fantasy does it, and I've played of that, and I've played very little, believe me. I love the system, I love the game, I think it's very intuitive, I think it's very unique. I think it's smart. It works very well for what it's trying to do, and I love it. I love it a lot. I would gladly play more. But it's cool because it's got the talent trees and things like that, where you have an archetype, but you don't have an actual class. You can branch off and learn new things, which is smart. But you see D20 shoehorned into a lot of properties, like there's a new Stargate coming out. I'm not saying it won't work for that, because the game's not out yet. I can't judge something I've never seen or played. But just on previous experience, it feels like, oh boy, another D20 system, here we go. You know what I mean? I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to be negative and be a downer and all that stuff, but it just seems like the D20 system is shoehorned into a lot of stuff. And that's unfortunate. I know it was especially in the early mid 2000s, it was the big boom when 3 came out and 3.5 came out. And you had like a bazillion different games released for D20, and a lot of them were offshoots of D&D style gameplay. So of course that worked very well for what it was. But you know, I always enjoy seeing things that are not D20 based, that have to do with other IPs like movies and games and shows and stuff. Even if I don't play them, you know, you can usually find an inspiration in it somewhere, somehow, and I like that. Or, you know, even if it's a D20 based system, like an OSR, like an OGL type system that's modified a little bit to make it not so super specifically modeled on, I don't want to say modeled on D20, but like it's not a clone of D&D with just the serial numbers filed off, and then a Star Wars logo put on, you know what I mean? I like when the system is modified and hacked and changed to fit the property rather than the property changing to fit the system. And moreover, I like seeing just new systems in general. I like reading about new systems and learning new systems and just seeing what people's takes on mechanics are. I think the whole what do you want to call it? There's not a genre, but excuse me. There's like a scene out there of people that are into mechanics and systems and stuff like that. So I think that's really awesome, and I really enjoy creating new mechanics and things like that to see how things fit. But so yeah, it's always fun to see new things that are not D20, or maybe that are D20 based, but not specifically Wizards of the Coast style D20. Like you know, Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells is a D20 based system, but it's not specifically excuse me, Dungeons and Dragons style D20. It's very similar, and it's definitely based on that, but it has evolved into its own thing. And it's a very beautiful, streamlined, unique kind of stripped down version of Dungeons and Dragons style D20. It's only got 4 stats. It doesn't have a skill list. It's got 3 classes, but it's a very minimalist mechanical game. So those three classes have a very, very, very short list of special, unique abilities. The beautiful thing about Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells is, even though there are classes per se, you can come up with your GM to create special abilities that you want. So just because, so you probably couldn't do like spell casting as a special ability unless you somehow had special rules to multi-class, which are currently not in the game, but would be very easy to house rule in. I know Diego Noguera, the guy who created the game. This dude's a genius, man. He's a mechanical genius with his games. I know he's working on a 2nd edition of it, and there may be some optional rules in there. I'm eagerly awaiting the 2nd edition of Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells, Diogo Nogueira. Check this guy's work out, man. This dude is on top of it. Anyway, there's an ability, there's a rule in there to come up with special abilities for your character. So you'll work with your GM to come up with an ability. Say you wanted to get like a druidic type shape changing skill or ability. You know, you and the GM will come up with how that works, and he will introduce it to the game by having your character go on a quest to learn it somehow. He'll bring it into the story. You won't just level up and learn it. It's brought into the story. That's one of the geniuses of Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells. By the way, it's free on Drive-Thru RPG. Go buy it, or I'm sorry, go get if you want it, if you're worried about it. God, this road is so shaky. Go get that game for free. If you like it, buy it again. Give the guy a couple bucks to the PDF, or just buy the hard copy, which I did. If you buy the hard copy, you get the PDF for free anyway, and it's super cheap. It's a beautiful little softcover book. Anyway, so it's nice to see unique systems based on D20 or offshoots of it or whatever, not just specifically an IP bent and mangled to fit into a D20 system. World of Darkness is the D10 system for the storyteller system for World of Darkness is very flexible. I feel like it could fit nearly any genre very easily, and there are numerous web source books out there for other IPs that fans have made, like fan books for it. And what are a couple others? D6 obviously is a generic system, so you could run that with, I would say, probably most genres. Some genres probably wouldn't fit very well, and I think there are some genres of either play or movies or something, if you wanted to do, that would require a unique system for it. You couldn't just, like, yeah, you could take D6, like the West End Games Star Wars D6 system, and do a horror game, like say Friday the 13th or a slasher game or something. You could do that, but it probably wouldn't. And I know a lot of how things feel is determined by the players and the GM, how they run the game and how they set it up and all that good stuff. But I mean, as far as mechanically can change the way a game feels, it really can. The mechanics of a game can change and determine how a game feels when you're playing it, genre-wise. So, and that's definitely a real thing. So, like to play a slasher genre or a slasher type game like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that in D6, while definitely possible because it's a generic system and you can run almost anything with it, you're better off looking at something specifically like Slasher Flick by Spectrum Games. I've not played that game, but I own it, and it's a fantastic read. Spectrum Games, very specifically, and they state this in their mission statement of their company, whatever their company mission statement, whatever. They specialize in genre emulation, and they do a really, really, really good job of that. They've got I discovered them through Cartoon Action Hour, which is again a fantastic game that you could run a lot of games with Cartoon Action Hour and just change and skin it up as a certain thing. Like, you want to run Star Wars and a Star Wars game that's more rules light, run Cartoon Action Hour and base it on the Clone Wars series, or the Clone Wars series, Clone Wars type show set in a different era, because it's not as dark and gritty. You can make it as dark and gritty as you want. It's a very, very unique and awesome system. It's very cool. But anyway, they have a game called Slasher Flick, which is literally just a game based on horror movies, like slasher movies. And it does what it does very, very, very well. I've not played the game, but I've read it cover to cover enough times to know that this system is really awesome. It's very unique. I've never seen another system like it. It's very rules light with enough mechanics to make it interesting, put it that way. I don't think the mechanics of the game will get in the way of the storytelling, and it's very cool. I should do a review of that sometime. That'd be a good book to review, because it does things like, you know, you play a couple characters, because in horror movies there's always like 7 or 8 characters, but it wants you to do the cliche and trope things, like when you're running through the woods, have your female scream and fall on trip, and you know when you're walking through a house that's got the slasher in it, the killer in it, you know, oh, why wouldn't you lock that door? Of course, leave the door unlocked as the character, or don't go look in the bathroom behind the shower curtain. We'll go do that. So you get bonuses for doing things that are dumb and that you shouldn't do, that those characters always do. And that plays out because you will lose characters along the way. The more you lose characters by doing dumb things, the stronger your other characters get. In a way, I guess is a good way of kind of describing it. Man, Slasher Flick is a great read. I bought it a long time ago, back when it first came out, and I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it was really cheap. And I suggest to everybody to at least go check out the PDF of it or something. It's a thick book. It's a nice thick book because it's got a lot of awesome information, a lot of cheesy but very cool art, very consistent art. The production value is pretty good. Man, just go check out Slasher Flick, and also check out Cartoon Action Hour. Unfortunately, Cartoon Action Hour started out as a Kickstarter, and it's on the 3rd edition of it, which they're called seasons. So season 3 is actually the 3rd edition of the game, and unfortunately, you can only get it in PDF right now. You cannot get a print on demand of it. You can get print on demand of the older versions of it, but because it was unfortunately a Kickstarter, and the person who runs Spectrum Games has a lot of health problems and stuff, and she's had a hard time keeping up with getting books out and released. So, and I know a lot of people, this is a different story for a different time, I guess, but a lot of people are really like unhappy with Spectrum Games and things like that. And it's literally have been, excuse me, years since this game has come out, and people are still getting books. They'll release like 5 to 10 books a month to ship out, print-on-demand books, because of her health problems and things. But at least she's still doing it. She hasn't given up, and she lets people know ahead of time who's getting books. And so, in an effort to be fair as possible to the people that did back the Kickstarter, the game is the game is PDF only until all the Kickstarter physical books are fulfilled, which I don't know how many there are. And I believe after that it will turn into a print-on-demand book. You can get hard copies, which as soon as it becomes print-on-demand, I will be buying a copy for sure. And I've had a little bit of interaction with the lady that runs Spectrum, Cynthia Celeste Miller. She is a really nice lady, and you know, she's had some health problems and things like that, which, you know, that's unfortunate. That sucks. Nobody likes that. But I just, through talking back and forth with her a couple of times, and you know, just the little bit of emails we've exchanged a few years ago, she was nice enough to send me a digital copy of one of the games that they released, and it was a really cool game too. But there was Cartoon Action Hour. Like I said, Cartoon Action Hour, I highly suggest to anybody, if you don't mind just having a digital copy of a game, or you can get an older version of it print on demand too, but if you don't mind just having a digital copy of a game, check out Cartoon Action Hour Season 3. Just fantastic game. Anyway, I'm at work, so I've got to get out of here. But thank you guys for listening again to my rambling, and go check out a couple of those games I mentioned, especially Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells by Diogo Nogueira. He's got a couple of other games out too, and they're just, the dude is a freaking genius. He's Brazilian, lives down in Brazil, and this guy is, I don't know how he's just an indie game guy. The dude, I'm actually glad that he's an indie game guy, because that gives him the freedom to create what he wants and do what he wants and do innovative things for the genre and things like that. So I not the genre, the hobby. Sorry. But anyway, go check out Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells. Go check out a couple of games by Spectrum Games, Slasher Flick and Cartoon Action Hour. Those are awesome. What I'm going to do also is I should try and think of another video that I'm going to do. I'm going to make a little list of games that are free on DriveThruRPG that I think you should check out and support the company in some way. Even games that might not be free but are still either only available there or are very cheap on there or whatever, or on Lulu, either way, lulu.com. I'm going to make a list of games that I think people should check out. So I'm going to get into work. Thanks for watching, you guys. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.